Google announces a big move into the gaming space. Let's explore. So Google's been making a big name recently for themselves because they just recently announced Stadia, which is going to be this awesome game controller that you can basically just buy the controller and you can play your video games on any Chrome browser or on any sort of Chrome-enabled, a Chrome-enabled device. So I have like Chromecast on some of my laptop, not my laptops, but my TVs, both in my my bedroom and as well as my main living area. So I can go and take this video game controller and I can go to any one of those locations and start playing video games. And that just sounds absolutely awesome. I'm very curious to find out what they're going to do as far as the platform goes. And that's kind of what I would like to hear more about. So I found this article written in Tech News World. It was written by John P. Mello, John P. Mello Jr. I should be very specific there. And he's got some pictures of the controllers, which is pretty cool. Looks like there's 3 different flavors, 3 different colors. You have kind of this white color, then this black, more matte color, and then a nice kind of, I don't know, is that a bluish hue kind of look to it? Interesting. So Google on Tuesday pulled off the wraps of Stadia, a new cloud-based gaming system platform. Cloud-based. So this sounds kind of like a cross between Steam, right? Kind of like a Steam or almost as if it's, what was there was like Origin. Origin was the name of one company, if I can look that up, right? So Origin, they were an online game streaming service that you could play video games just like through the internet. And it was really, really cool. And you didn't necessarily need a full gaming console in order to play it. So it sounds kind of like a crossover between, what they're planning on doing is a crossover between Origin, like this online game streaming service, as well as something like Steam, where you can find also, like you could just go to almost like a Play Store area to go find games to play, and then you can stream them online, which would be really, really cool. And then being able to stream those to any device in your home would be really, really nice, instead of just having to have an Xbox or a PlayStation and only being able to play those games on that one thing. You can literally go to any device in your home that has Google Chrome. So that's your computers, that have your laptops that might have Chrome installed, or if you have Chromecast on any of your TVs or something like that, you could just wire up your controller and go play the game on whatever device. That sounds pretty cool. Let's see if there's any pitfalls. Using the power of Google's global information infrastructure, Stadia can stream the highest quality games to any screen. Google CEO Sundar, I never know, Pichai? I don't know how to pronounce. I should know how to pronounce his last name, shouldn't I? Said in a keynote announcing the platform, which is expected to come online later this year. Stadia represents Google's vision for the future of gaming, where the worlds of watching and playing games converge into a new generation of game platform, perfectly built for the 21st century. So, okay. First of all, I gotta say, so there's this real attempt by some of the gaming platforms, some of the gaming consoles, to make it easy to upload your video clips, right? But honestly, I don't know anybody that watches them. I don't. There's a big push by them to say, you can clip these video things and put them on our little platform and you can share them with your friends. Okay, that's great and all, but that's not really what drives the gaming industry as far as viewing, right? Like the PewDiePies of the world, or Shroud, or Dr. Disrespect, like those are the big names, right? The summits. You've got some big names in the industry. Heck, I used to watch like Drifter and T. Martin. There's a lot of Vanoss Gaming. Those were all very popular gamers that I watch. But they're not doing these like clip it from Xbox or clip it from PlayStation or clip it from some, little bit from my video game and post it up on some sort of pre-planned platform. Instead, they're actually live doing on Twitch, or they're recording. Like one of the things Vanoss Gaming used to do is record whole games and then just kind of chop them up to just the funny bits, and he'd go play with friends, you know, and that was really good. That's really good content. Vanoss is well known as one of those guys that comes up with funny content basically weekly, you know, sometimes 2 or 3 times a week. And that's good, but the world of gaming and sharing your content, it's not really that personal. It's not really like, hey, I'm making this video clip, I'm going to share it with my friends, because I don't really have that many friends that are really that curious about that little 2-minute clip that I've got. More or less what we're going to be doing is wanting to watch live streaming. And that's what I think the gaming platforms really need to be able to do, is live stream the content and allow it to tie into things like, you know, your different studio type of equipment, right? You have the little, I forget what you call it, like little boards that you can press to have certain graphics appear. The name of those things are escaping me, but I find it very interesting that these companies, even Google, is trying to do this, like, take a few 30 seconds or a minute or 2 minutes worth of video content and post it up on our platform and share it with your friends. Who's doing that? I don't know who's doing that in the gaming industry. Like, I don't do it. None of my friends do it. I don't know anybody online that does it. They just share, or they just live broadcast, or they make YouTube clips, right? They do stuff like that. But that's all pre-packaged, pre-processed, not on the fly, let me clip this 30 seconds and post it. I don't know. I don't know where that idea is coming from. And I don't know who's giving them that advice, that that's something that's really popular. Maybe it is, and I'm completely misinformed. Anyway, I've been going on for a long time about that. Games are now the single biggest form of entertainment on the planet, one that connects a vast community across geographies, cultures, language, he said. And that's true. I think gaming is definitely the biggest form of entertainment that we have outside of, you know, and maybe it has surpassed TV at this point. I wouldn't be surprised if it has. I know a lot of people that would rather play a video game than go actually watch any TV. And it makes sense. It's interactive. You get to do something. You get to have some achievements, and it's a really growing industry. So within that passionate community, there's a universe of people that love playing games. There's a universe of people who love watching games. Oh boy, you know what? I'm actually more of the latter. I love watching certain players play video games, and I don't know why. I thought I would be like, I never thought there would be a day where I would want to watch someone else play a video game. I never thought there would be that day, but here we are. One of my favorites, and I'm going to give a shout out to Choco Taco on Twitch TV. I watch him all the time. Usually I have his stream up from when he starts to when he ends the day. I usually have that up and on mute, and every once in a while I'll unmute it. So shout out to Choco Taco if he's watching. I doubt he is. Okay, but those two worlds mostly disconnected, fragmented, and often independent of each other. Our vision is to bring those worlds closer together to connect game developers with players and YouTube creators in a way that only Google can. So I see what they're getting at here, but the implementation of how they're doing it, I just don't see it. So in this video that they have, they show how. Oops, that's not it. It's this one here. So it's the second video. Boy, that was kind of loud, wasn't it? It's the second video that I think they go into, like, there's a button on here. Close that down. So there's a button on here. You can't see it there. So it's right there. It's this button right here that I'm hovering the mouse over. Okay? And if you press on that, it'll, like, publish your video content to YouTube. Great. Okay? That's not really how it works, though, right? I'm interested to see what type of integration they actually do with this. Because if it's just a push button, take a 30-second or 2-minute clip of what I just did and push it up to YouTube, no one's going to watch that. I mean, no one is going to watch that. What everybody's looking to do is have that kind of prepackaged content or live stream. We're not looking for a 30-second or 2-minute video clip of something cool that you did. Yes, you did something cool. You might be able to get 1 or 2 of your friends to like it, but that's not going to drive a lot of people, nor do I know too many people who even want to do that. I mean, it's maybe good for your own record keeping. Like, hey, there was that move that I did. Maybe I should clip that and remind myself that, hey, I did something cool. But you're not sharing that, really. I don't know. I could go on and on for that. Let's go back up here. So I kind of want to start skipping around here because I've taken a lot of time. Device agnostic approach. As an example of how Stadia can link watching and playing, Harrison demonstrated how someone watching a game trailer on YouTube could start playing the game at the click of an on-screen button in as quickly as 5 seconds. And that is pretty cool. And I think that is one of the things that is going to give Google a big heads up. Even if you just took away all the extra special stuff that they're trying to do, right? If you just said, Google's coming out with a gaming platform, the fact that they are in so many other things that they can do this type of integration with other, like a YouTube video clip of some game trailer, and you want to play it, you click on the button and you can go download it and start playing it on your console. That type of thing is not something Nintendo can do. It's not something that Microsoft can do. It's not something that PlayStation can do or Sony, right? Only Google can do something like that. And that's the kind of thing that I think could really change the way that people are approaching some of the games that they play. Being able to run a console, play a console game on essentially your computer from anywhere, could be your computer, could be your TV. You can switch over to games. If you see a good game on YouTube or a Google advertisement or a Google search history browse, anything like that, where they can just kind of integrate seamlessly from you're on this platform, now go play the game, is a leg up that no one else can quite match right now. And that's a big revolutionary thing. Okay, so unlike games from major players like Microsoft and Sony, Stadia games will run on just about any device that can run a Chrome browser or TV that works with Chromecast. So again, there we go. Any laptop, any PC, any computer, or any TV that's running Chromecast, anything like that, you can go play your game on it. And so you don't necessarily need the computer equipment. You don't necessarily need to have the Xbox console. You don't need the console itself. You just plug in and play, right? And you just play an online streaming service. The only hardware Google introduced at its event was a game controller that could be used when playing Stadia games. The controller uses Wi-Fi to connect a device directly to a game in the cloud. So that's kind of where I was saying it's kind of like this cross with Origin, right? Origin is this online game streaming platform. It's just you're in the cloud, you're playing a game in the cloud. You don't need any actual hardware other than your computer to actually play the game, right? And it's not like you download a pre-packaged thing like you do like with Steam, right? When you play Steam games, you actually buy the application that downloads to your computer. You open it up that way. That's not how Origin works. Okay, so they're kind of taking that good idea that Origin had, and they're kind of merging it with a PlayStation or Play Store Steam-like, interface to go find the game that you want to play. And then, of course, like I was saying before, if they can integrate some of those other things that you're doing, like I'm watching YouTube, I want to play that game that I'm looking at the trailer for, that's a pretty big thing. It also gave Google specific buttons. One allows gamers to share their gaming experience on YouTube with a click of a button. The other gives a gamer direct access to Google Assistant through their mic built into the controller. And what I thought was really also cool about that Google Assistant is that the gamers, or the game developers, can integrate that Google Assistant with their game. So my wife and I, we actually own a Google Hub. We own several of the little Google Minis. And we have them throughout the house, and they control our light system and lots of good stuff like that. But we can always tell Google Assist, hey, I want to play a game or something like that. And it'll start like saying, here's a set of games that you can play. And you can just kind of talk back and forth with it. But it is an integration of Google Assistant as a gaming system, right? I can kind of play games with my Google Home. So being able to invent games that interact with Google Assistant has already been there, but it seems like now we're talking about like full integration of those kind of things within the games, which is just really cool. I mean, if you could just say, Google, what is my hit point level, or what's my health like, or something like that, the game developers could put in there. That would be pretty cool, right? You know, like what's the status of my, how many bullets do I have left? Or, you know, where is my friend on this map? Give me coordinates to objective C. Like that's the kind of stuff that you could do as a gamer that would be more immersive and have like this Google Assistant HUD system. That would be awesome, right? Who else has got that, right? Who else has got that kind of integration between consoles in the console world? You know, you have to have a headset in order to do any of that kind of stuff. And a lot of the games manufacturers today just assume they have to work from the baseline assumption that you don't have a microphone. They have to come up with a gaming experience where that's not a part of the thing. But here they're actually building it into the controller, which means I can reliably, as a game developer, assume you have a microphone to work with and can ask for me to do things. That's pretty cool. Again, another very revolutionary thing, not something that we see in a lot of consoles. Okay. Accessing Google Assistant in game is terrific. Blah, blah, blah. Most hardcore gamers are always looking for hidden advantage, and having to have to do that in a separate device is a real pain, he told Tech News. Yeah. It's helpful to have a unified controller, says Ross Rubin, principal analyst. Okay. That helps put people at a more level playing field. That's true. One thing that's really annoying, especially about computer games, right? If you are in the computer gaming world, some people just have better equipment. They have better monitors. They have better, mice. They have better keyboards. They have, and sometimes these are very, very minor, right? And the argument is, well, they don't make that big of an impact. But if you can just basically say, no, everybody has the same equipment. Everybody has the same controller. Everybody has the same abilities to play this game and same connection and stuff. That really helps, I think, level the playing field amongst the gamers. And it's not somebody loses out because of XYZ equipment isn't matching the opponent's XYZ equipment. The Stadia controller addresses two problems that might arise when using other kinds of controllers, noted Piers Harding Rolls, a director at IHS Markit, a research analyst. Okay. Rather than connect the controller through Bluetooth and open up a return channel from the connected device, a direct connection to the internet removes some latency and also enables controller support for connected devices that do not have Bluetooth, he explained. That's a very good point. The fact that my controller is basically directly connected to the game instead of going through Bluetooth is definitely a pretty big, that does reduce some of the latency that you might see with those kind of controllers. Crowded market. Game streaming isn't unique to Google. Streaming games has been around for years, even has been waiting for it to take off. Or everyone has been waiting for it to take off, yeah, that's right. So like Origin is the one I was talking about. Microsoft laid out a similar vision with Microsoft Game Stack, and EA has done the same with Project Atlas. It is likely that both Tencent and Amazon will follow suit with similar technologies. Boy, that's probably very true. Cloud is the new platform dynamic for the game sector and will be where the future competitive landscape resides. Absolutely. One of the biggest problems with streaming games, and one Google didn't address in this presentation Tuesday, is creating a viable business model. Are you kidding me? Creating a viable business model? I'm sorry, but I don't buy that as a problem. Like, this is Google we're talking about. When have they had a problem with viable business models? Okay. I guess maybe they're just trying to dig at some content, right? Like, here's all this great stuff that we've got. There's got to be something negative in here that I got to at least say something about, I guess. I don't know. To me, like, the viable business model is pretty simple. Let's produce the thing. Let's make some games for it and show how cool this thing is. The other thing is, like, so the one thing that I would say is a question at this point is how do you get developers on board? That's always the question whenever you come out with a new console or a new platform. How do you get developers to develop games? And it's the same thing with any platform, and as developers, we are very well aware of this, right? We have a platform that we want to develop on, and it's not enough for someone to just come out with a new programming language. We have to want to be able to build applications on that programming language. And it's the same thing with consoles. If they come out with a console, it may be great in concept, but if it doesn't have games to back it up, it's not going to do any good. One console that I bought a long time ago was called the Ouya, and it was a more indie developer platform, but anybody could really just deploy an application on there and make money off of it. And they had a pretty decent model, but it wasn't popular enough. It just wasn't, it didn't have the marketing that it needed in order to really gain the foothold. So to me, this is something that Google's obviously already figured out. And the fact that they have other platforms that they can tie into this, like I said, YouTube or Google Search, or, you can tie it into your, you can, do it on Chromecast, you can do it on your laptop. Like, they've already got a lot of this stuff figured out. So I don't think that just because they didn't address this specific thing that this author was thinking about doesn't mean that it's not already been addressed. But I am curious to see what their plan is as far as bringing on developers, because that's a big question. Okay. It's kind of tough to find a business model that will work with that kind of service, Cole said. I think that's already figured out. Another issue with streaming services has been latency, especially in the mobile realm. However, the development of 5G technology could help address the problem, noted Rob Endrell, principal analyst at the Endrell Group, an advisory services firm in Bend, Oregon. My beloved Bend, Oregon. That's where I'm actually at right now. I live in Bend, Oregon. So I always love seeing that town name in a news article. It's great. While 5G availability will limit growth initially, that limit may be a good thing, he told Tech News World. I don't know where mobile is necessarily going to be a problem. I think streaming service is just kind of that. Like, he's trying to draw this comparison of mobile to what Google is offering, and I just don't see that as being a problem. Like, who's going to be, if I'm at home, I have my, what am I going to be playing this, what am I going to be playing this on? I'm going to be at home playing on my TV, on my computer, on my laptop. I'm at home. I'm not out in the world. Like, I'm not going to be carrying a controller around with me as I wander around down the streets, right? I'm going to be at home. What do I have at home? Wi-Fi. So why do I care whether or not there's going to be 5G technology? Oh, man. Okay. Let's skip ahead because it seems like... okay, I'm glad he's from Bend, Oregon, but I'm already kind of discrediting this guy. Rather than the future of gaming, Stadia is more back to the future of gaming, maintained Michael Goodman, director of digital media at Strategy Analytics. Boy, it's a mouthful. A research advisory and analytics firm in Newton, Massachusetts. While the underlying technology is new and improved, the concept is not. That's right. It's kind of like it's the same thing, but they're just kind of making it better, right? Whether we call it cloud gaming, streaming gaming, or games on demand, the concept has been around for 15 or 20 years now. From what I've seen so far, the Stadia fails to address the principal downfall of all its predecessors, lack of AAA titles. Bingo! Boy, did he just nail that. But let me tell you what, I don't think they need to address it. Okay, I'm curious, but I don't think it's going to be a problem. This is Google we're talking about. They're a big enough name, and if they can have enough devices, especially at this price point, $60. Oh, no, that's not it. Hold on. Do they have the price point listed in here? So this is what games are going to sell at. So that's the price point for games. Okay. But I'm curious what the price point is for the device, because that's really what's going to be the telling thing. If I have to go buy an Xbox for $300 or $350 or whatever the newest, whenever they come out with a new one, what does that cost? It's like $300, $350, something like that. Sometimes even $400. What is the cost of this device? All that they have to do is produce a video game, a controller, right? A Wi-Fi controller. All the games are streaming. So their hardware that they have to sell you is this little device, not this big device and these little devices. That means the price point, in my opinion, I know they haven't addressed this, but I think the price point is going to be significantly lower for this Google platform. It's going to be significantly lower for Stadia. And that's going to be a huge leg up because people are going to start snapping them up, right? They're going to start picking them up. And as soon as those AAA titles know that there are enough of those consoles out there, enough of those controllers out there for there to be a market, they're going to come to Google and start just wanting to be on their platform, right? They're not going to have to be enticed. They're going to want to be there because that's where they know they can make their money. Okay, so games sell for around $60 at retail. Of that, publishers get around $36. That's a little steep. That does seem a little bit steep, but I guess after subtracting developer costs and marketing expenses, publishers keep around $15 per game, he explained. That's not a great price point, I gotta say. I think games need to sell for a little cheaper than that. And I think that Google has to be careful about how much they're taking away from those AAA makers. They're going to have to be careful. They're probably going to work out some special deals for certain AAA titles, I'm sure. Like, this is how many units you sell, you know, you'll get this price point. I'm sure that's probably what it's going to be. Anyway, with streaming services, publishers do not make as much money, or if licensing fees are pegged to usage, then cost can exceed monthly user revenue. Either way, the economics don't work. Streaming services are great for library titles, but not for new releases. So what they're getting into here is, you know, that if you're going to do a streaming service, that means that you have a high amount of service usage, right? A high amount of CPU and memory and server resources that are in use to stream these games, right? Not just that, but also network bandwidth. And that's a very different experience than what you have on your traditional console, because your traditional console has the games loaded onto it, right? And then the only communication that's necessary is what gets pushed up, right? Is what kind of is the data that gets streamed from the server, like position-wise, or maps that need to be you load up map information from off of the server, but the client application is locally hosted, right? And the thing is, what they're not really getting into, and one of the things that could very easily do this, is we already know in the software development industry that you can easily load up a client at the beginning of every instance. You can send somebody that file that is the client package on their initial connection. And then they have that client on their system, and that could be updated. You can even have it so that it updates every time that they reconnect. They automatically get an updated version of that, just like we do with websites, right? React and Angular are essentially HTML, CSS, and JavaScript that actually get preloaded up onto the user's browser, and then that's already an application on their browser that they're using, and that browser is acting like its own client that then just does these semi-small calls to an API. You can use that exact same model for a streaming service, right? Have some sort of client that all it does is figures out like what kind of data it needs to pull from the server, but that client can stay residing on the browser or in that browser experience. So we already have the technology, and Google Chrome already has like some great ways to handle this with service workers and things like that, that you don't really need to have a fully installed pre-packaged client already installed on the hardware. You can kind of just upload it at the time on demand. And maybe that's where they're going to get. Maybe that's what they'll get to. And I am kind of talking a little bit beyond what they're getting at here in the article. But I think it's kind of stuff that the people that are writing these articles may not necessarily know, or the people who are doing the analysis, maybe they're not thinking in terms of that, or, you know, how would those issues be addressed? They're just kind of saying, well, there's questions, and I have this question, and I have this question, so there's questions. And I don't know. News media has always been like that. Even in tech, it's just always kind of been, you know, we got to come up with some way of figuring out a way to drudge up some angst amongst the people reading. Okay, Google is trying to run before it learns to walk, said Lewis Ward, research director of gaming at IDC, a market research firm in Framingham, Massachusetts. I'm not sure they've done the basic steps to obtain titles out of the gate, he told Tech News World. I wouldn't be surprised if Stadia stacked up poorly against PlayStation Now. You know, this is silly. It's really silly. I haven't done the legwork. I'm sorry. I totally disagree. It's Google. It's Google. Like, seriously, the number one company, tech-wise, that we all know and can easily make a foray into this. Of all the people that would already have some sort of plan and all the legwork already figured out, it would be Google, right? It would have to be Google. There's no other company that would have already done so much preparation for it. No, and not only that, the simple fact, like going back to earlier where I was saying, you know, the fact that they thought about the integration of like YouTube advertising to go play a video game, that means they're already thinking well beyond. They're already thinking well beyond those questions that these guys are asking. They're thinking other things. They're already thinking about other ways that they can incorporate their platform. And that's next level thinking that these guys that are these analysts just don't understand. They just don't get it. I don't know. What they stream is not what you get. Although Google touched on the quality of its stream, those claims can be misleading, Goodman noted. Stadia may stream it at 4K 60 frames per second, but it is highly unlikely that the end user will get anything approaching this quality. That is a good point. Okay, I gotta give you that, Mr. Goodman. Just because you can stream it at 40K doesn't mean that's what the end user experience is going to be. Anyone who streamed 40K video knows that with network congestion, adaptive bitrate streaming, and simple in-home router limitations, what comes out of the servers rarely is what shows up on the screen. And that is probably, in my opinion, that right there is the number one question when it comes to online cloud delivery of games. That doesn't mean it can't work, okay? If you go to, if you do it right, so the main question is, how do you get the graphics streaming, right? If you do graphical streaming, if you do video streaming in the format of like of Netflix, say for example, then that's where you might think that this comparison makes total sense. However, if you think about the model where I talked about before, where character models or certain things get loaded up onto a client on the gaming console side, then, and it doesn't have to be much, it just has to be certain like model generation, right? It has to be, I wouldn't, you know, some of the physics stuff might be there too, although probably not. That would probably still be on the game, on the server side. But mostly like the graphically intense things, if you can get a standard set of assets uploaded early to a system, which is what consoles do. You load a bunch of assets on the client side. If you can do that, you stream that up first to make the connection. Then you don't need to stream as much data from off the server to the client because it's more about position or results or score or some of the calculations that get computed on the server side, right? Those types of things are just facts and figures and numbers, and those can be easily streamed. It's when you're talking about heavy graphics related things, that's where things start to crumble. That's where you need really high quality 4K streaming, you know, really like 1 gig internet connectivity. But you don't necessarily need that if you can preload the assets onto the console. Now, in a traditional console sense, you kind of do that, right? You load up a disc, you buy a disc from GameStop or wherever, and you load up all those assets, and you just basically ask that back-end server for some of that extra information, maybe map stuff. So really, the question really is, where are the assets being loaded? So if it's pure streaming, if we're talking about just purely streaming, then yes, this is an apt comparison. If we're just talking about streaming graphics directly. But on the other hand, I think that you could say, even if that is the worst case scenario and none of the assets are being loaded up on the client side, on the user side, then you still have some pretty good, decent connectivity if you look at the technology that we do have with Netflix. I mean, or Hulu or any of those platforms, right? You can get some really, really good graphics. And it can be streaming. We have the technology now that I think it's very, very possible. I just wouldn't go playing it on a 56K baud modem, right? I wouldn't be doing dial-up to go play these video games. It's not going to work. Okay, let's move on. Playing a AAA game on any screen sounds better than it actually plays, he added. Assassin's Creed Odyssey is a great game unless you're trying to play it on a smartphone, in which case the screen is too small. Again, who's talking smartphone? Who's talking smartphone? Who's talking mobile? I don't get that. We're not talking mobile. We're talking Wi-Fi. Anyway, Goodman observed, and are you going to try to attach some kind of controller to your smartphone to play it or try to use touchscreen? Neither is a very good solution. Well, that's because most phone game developers don't consider that you're going to be using a controller. They don't make games for controllers for your mobile phone. Duh. I'm sorry, I'm getting kind of mad. I just, like, these analysts, I don't understand. They don't, it seems like there's a hidden agenda. Like, we need to, here's a great idea. We need to poo-poo it as much as we can so we sound smart. That's what I'm hearing. Maybe it's just me, but that's what I'm hearing. And I don't blame John here, right? He's taking all of these quotes from these analysts, these so-called analysts. So I don't blame John at all. Great job of reporting. Great job of going and finding people in the industry to ask questions, find all the reasons why some people don't like it. I just think that most of these contentions are from people who think that they're smarter than they are. And maybe I'm just thinking I'm smarter than I am. I don't know. It's very possible. But the bottom line is I don't see the challenges that these people are. Like, maybe it's just because I'm making an assumption that this is Google. Obviously, I think Google has many flaws. I think they do things wrong all the time. But that doesn't mean like that these questions that they're raising are really all that valid. I just don't see it. The whole comparison to mobile, I think, is ridiculous. It's not mobile. You're going to be playing these games on your Wi-Fi. Which is exactly what all the other consoles do. So I think that's a bunch of it's a bogus argument. Streaming games, so that is one thing. Streaming your full graphics content, it'll be interesting to see how they tackle that challenge. It'll be interesting to see if there is some sort of technology that Google starts to employ that they insist that these AAA titles start to embrace in order to do it. But I think that the model that I'm talking about here would be really good for the AAA makers to take on. Instead of front-loading so many assets that, right now they do a very heavy asset loading on the console. How can you slim that down to just some of the things that are necessary, right? Some of the assets that are absolutely necessary. It may limit some of the detail of what comes out, and that's kind of a big push in today's gaming market, is the graphical intensity makes it feel realistic. But at the same time, if you're going to make this kind of thing happen, if you're going to get on the Google platform, if I'm a developer of video games and I'm thinking about what platforms I want to deploy to, and Google suddenly becomes an option, you bet your ass I'm going to want to try to be on that platform. I don't care. What are the hoops I've got to do? What are the SDK kits that I got to get my hands on in order to start developing for that console? What do I got to do? And maybe Google has some pretty cool, Origin is a really good example of how somebody was able to take an already existing game and figure out how to stream it. That's pretty good. Like, they just retrofitted. They didn't ask the AAA titles to go through and do a whole recreation of the game to match their SDK, right? They're just basically figuring out how to retrofit an older game to match their streaming service. And that's where I think that you're not going to get, it's going to be difficult for Google if they try to take that track. I think that they're going to be better off if they start offering up their own SDKs in order to do the development for this particular console, which it sounds like they're going to do, because otherwise how do you get Google Assistant in there, right? There's got to be some sort of software development kit that Google's already got for deploying games onto this console. So AAA developers are going to have to start, figuring out how to get to these SDKs, how to start building for these SDKs, and hopefully it does do something like I'm talking about, where it loads up at least some portion of the assets on the client side to slim down the amount of network traffic that's necessary in order to run the game. It's not a hard concept to do. Making it work is a little different, right? There's definitely some challenges. But yeah, I think that any game developer worth their salt is going to want to be on this platform. Why not? Like, I can't see the price point of this controller being higher than Xbox or PlayStation. It's probably going to be, you'd probably be able to buy one of these controllers for less than $100. I'm guessing, just kind of a guess, but I imagine you're probably going to be able to buy it for less than that. Like, which gaming platform are you going to want to buy for your kids next time around? Are you going to want to spend less than $100 to get Google games? Or are you going to want to spend $400 to get the latest Xbox that you have to then also, on top of that, go buy all the game hardware, all the DVDs and, go to GameStop, go buy the discs. Or you could, of course, we do often download the games and store them locally, but you still got to pay for that on top of the cost of the console. What are the titles that are out on those? That's also a concern. Like, what are the games that I can play on the PlayStation versus what are the games I can play on Xbox, or what are the games I can play on Nintendo? And if you can essentially, as Google can position themselves, say, yeah, we can host anybody who's just willing to retrofit our SDK into their game. I don't see any reason why any AAA studio wouldn't at least say, hey, go figure out how to make our game work on Google. Like, I don't know why they wouldn't do that. I think that there's going to be a way bigger portion of people buying this the Stadia thing than they're giving credit for in this article. Anyway, that's my insight. That's what I think about this. I know I've gone pretty long. Gosh, I don't even know how much time that is, but I've been talking about this for a long time. If you guys want to check out this article, I will post a link in the description of this video. You guys can go check it out yourself, and I'm curious to hear what you guys think. What exactly is the gaming system of your choice? What do you guys prefer? Xbox? Do you prefer PlayStation? Do you prefer Nintendo Switch? Or is there something else that you guys play? Like, I used to play the Ouya a little bit, and the Ouya was really fun. And of course, don't forget, there's gaming consoles, right? There's mobile games. There's or not gaming consoles. There's computers, right? PC gamers all the time. I like watching Choco Taco. Like I said, he's a PC gamer. So what do you guys play? If you guys are playing games, what do you guys play? And are you interested in a gaming console from Google? I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Take care. I hope to see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.